In a time of profound social and cultural change, an entire generation of young Americans stood united in their desire for more powerful cars, fueling the greatest horsepower war in automotive history. Screeching rubber through turns, roaring down back streets and country lanes, were fun-loving drivers in their wild and powerful dream machines. Just about anyone could afford to fly down the road in a boldly styled, attention-grabbing American icon, the muscle car. Hello, I'm Chip Foose, coming to you from Vic's Garage at the historic headquarters of Edelbrock in Torrance, California. Of Detroit's big three car companies in the 60s, General Motors was America's largest. The decade would see 4 of its 5 car divisions offer the public the widest array of performance models and options in history, while Pontiac, Buick, and Oldsmobile would produce their most potent offerings around single mid-size models. GM's largest division, Chevrolet, would build muscle in every size and shape.
Nobody takes your pleasure as seriously as Chevrolet. And nobody builds as many cars and trucks just for fun. So whether you want hitches to pull a trailer, a boat, or anything, Chevrolet's got what you want in vehicles and equipment.
In 1966, Chevrolet restyled and reappointed its previously mundane entry-level Chevy 2.
If you look real close at it, especially the front end on the car, you'll notice that the headlamp, the fixtures sort of give it a vertical look to it, where instead of a horizontal. And what it did actually start to mimic Pontiac. They liked the idea of the short hood, long rear deck design. They liked the idea of having a hard top and used a sloping back end. The vertical taillights in the back were quite a change from Chevrolet, which has always gone with a horizontal theme. They did expand the wheelbase 2 inches for your feet. They changed the instrument panel, going with a ribbon speedometer. It was really nice.
The Chevy 2 was offered in a variety of body styles, with numerous trim packages and options. At the top of the tree was the well-appointed Chevy 2 Super Sport.
Super Sport was basically the same as the Nova, except it had some deleted trim on the outside, some deluxe trim on the inside, bucket seats, console. And so it was for the person that liked a sportier-looking car.
This example of the Chevy 2 Nova Sport Coupe was the model favored by street racers. Its powerful engine option attracted the attention of performance enthusiasts.
You could get the Nova with a 4-cylinder, a 6-cylinder, small V8, or the 327 V8, in this case, the famous L79. There were a little bit less than 6,000 of these total Chevy 2s made with the L79 engine. The 327 350 horse was an amazing engine, 11-to-1 compression, aluminum intake, Holley carburetor, good-sized dual exhaust, a lot of power, more than 1 horsepower per cubic inch, which was pretty incredible back in the day. The optimum was to have a power-to-weight ratio of 10-to-1, and this is what most manufacturers had back then. If you had a 3,500-pound GTO, you had a 350 horsepower engine. In the Nova, you've got a 2,800-pound car with 350 horsepower. That changes the power-to-weight ratio way beyond optimum. And this was particularly well-suited for drag racing. With a little bit of work, you could run a low 12-second car at over 115 miles an hour. And that was factored in right perfect with the Hemis that were drag racing back then in HRA. And in fact, a gentleman by the name of Bill Grumpy Jenkins had the most famous of these Chevy 2 Novas, and it was a Nova Sport Coupe, just like this. And he saw the potential of these cars, so he started building up these little 327s. I think they factored out close to about 450 horsepower, and that was amazing. The 66 L79 was probably the pinnacle of stealth. This thing on the street would make people stand up and take notice. And the wise guys, the real smart people, take out the 327 tag, put the 283 tag on there, and then you go out street racing. And I'll tell you what, they scared a lot of big block GTOs and 442s and Chrysler, and especially Ford guys with the 289 Mustangs that were fairly quick. Didn't have a chance against one of these. These things would eat them up and spit them right out. Unfortunately, with the small brakes, you kind of took your life in your hands, but fun vehicle, absolutely a trip to drive.
The powerful Chevy 2 Nova had earned its performance stripes, but Chevrolet would soon focus most of its small car efforts on cutting into arch-rival Ford's Mustang sales with the Camaro.
So the little L79 was a one-year-only engine option. It was kind of a shame, but Nova still had its following, and the nicest thing is you could have it any way you wanted.
Coming up, a Chevelle that was rare when it was new.
You are not going to find one of those cars in the showroom. That was a purpose-built vehicle that someone went in, with a loan or cash in hand that said, you know what, I read about these, I want one of these.
Chevrolet in the 1960s was determined to be the performance car market leader. The compact Novas provided thrills to entry-level buyers who could only dream of owning a beautiful big block Corvette sports car. The sporty Camaro would seduce Corvette and Nova customers loyal to Chevrolet, but the Chevelle was the sales leader. In the hopes of maintaining the car's market dominance for the 1968 model year, Chevrolet rolled out the restyled and third generation of its bow tie bad boy.
'66 and '67 cars look very similar. '68 was a big change for Chevelle. By then, the earlier cars had helped build a reputation, the SS396 cars, the performance that they had done. The factories, continued to layer on top of a great package.
An all-new, sportier body with tapered front fenders and a more rounded beltline was the most obvious change in the 1968 Chevelle. Coupes featured a flowing semi-fastback roofline, and like all of GM's mid-size A-body models, the wheelbase shrank 3 inches to 112 inches. Over 60,000 SS396 Sport Coupes were built in 1968. This highly optioned 4-speed Matador Red Chevelle from the Muscle Car City Museum is one of only 7 built with a 396 cubic inch, 375 horsepower L89 engine option.
You are not going to find one of those cars in the showroom. That was a purpose-built vehicle that someone went in, with a loan or cash in hand that said, you know what, I read about these, I want one of these.
The L89 package was a for racing only package that did nothing for performance other than lighten the weight of the engine under the hood. So if you were drag racing, for instance, and you wanted to shed 150 pounds, you could opt for the L89 cylinder heads. They were made of aluminum. They were the same size ports, the same size valves as the cast iron head, so there was no flow increase or anything else. It was a matter of lightening the weight only.
But it was an expensive option. I believe it was $500–600 for those things. That was more than enough to dissuade most muscle car enthusiasts who, were still pumping gas or working at a speed shop. They couldn't afford that.
One of the most eclectic muscle cars in Chevrolet's fleet was its El Camino. The third generation of this coupe utility vehicle was based on the Chevelle platform.
And they took basically a Chevrolet station wagon, cut out the back end, made it a 2-door, put a bed in there, had the nice tailgate that went up and down, but took the window out because the station wagon had a window went up and down.
It's a pickup truck. Who would have thought? But pretty much from the door forward, it looked just like a Chevelle. It was essentially an A-body. To this day, they're the favorite of pool cleaners across the country.
And the other thing about the El Caminos is they were pretty light cars. They had one seat in the passenger compartment, and that's it. General Motors, not wanting to miss a trick, decided to make high-performance motors available for them too, and created these great packages with special hoods and striping and trim, and they were very cool.
It would not only haul the mail, but it would haul a quarter ton of anything you want to throw in the back. Great tow vehicle. They were full-frame vehicles.
Towing power was not a problem for this garnet red 69 4-speed El Camino from Muscle Car City. Under the hood is Chevy's potent L78 375 horsepower 396 V8. The interior features desirable straddle bucket seats and round gauge pods, which were new for '69. Front end styling features blacked out Super Sport grille with chrome trim between quad headlights.
Yeah, the El Camino was, in a way, it was almost like the answer to a question nobody should have asked. Why make a hyper muscle car out of an El Camino? But they did. People bought them in limited numbers. People enjoyed them. They're very desirable today.
Coming up, conservative General Motors gets hip.
Was a gimmick, but it kind of worked. Immediately took off. It was a huge success and really salvaged the '69 model year.
Five years after Pontiac's introduction of its Le Mans with the GTO option, just about every American car manufacturer had jumped on the muscle car bandwagon. Competition between brands was fierce, but dark clouds loomed. Concerns about 18-year-olds buying 400 horsepower cars sent insurance rates soaring. Muscle car sales needed a lift. If a cartoon bird could help sell the competition's Roadrunner, then a popular phrase from a hit TV show just might help reinvent the GTO. The GTO hit its sales peak in 1966 with just under 97,000 sold. But even a complete restyle in 1968 failed to push the GTO past that high water mark.
In 1964, it was a hype, in a sense, for the Le Mans. Well, now the GTO itself, which was a model since 1966, needed a hype. So we went to work and came up with a very, very interesting promotion, which turned out to be really one of the all-time greats, particularly in the Pontiac world.
Just a special great one from Pontiac GTO. First speed shifter, 3-speeder 4. Pontiac Ram Air 366 horse. Mag-type wheels, 60-inch spoiler airfoil. The judge will rule.
We had originally called the car ET, which stood for elapsed time. John DeLorean, who had to put his final stamp of approval on the car, never really liked the name. So he says, every time I turn on television, I hear some guy screaming, "Here comes the judge, here comes the judge. Why don't we bring him the judge?" And everybody looked at each other, everybody said, he is so right. It so fits that car. So the car was given the name The Judge, not Judge, but The Judge, which was a gimmick, but it kind of worked. So that car came into the market in 1969, immediately took off. It was a huge success and really salvaged the '69 model year.
At a base price of just over $3,000, the Judge was slightly more expensive than the standard hardtop GTO. It was offered with a 3-speed manual Hurst shifter, quadrajet carburetor, and one of 2 Ram Air 400 cubic inch V8 engines. The standard Ram Air 3 rated at 366 horsepower, or the Ram Air 4 at 370 horsepower. Styling cues included a custom black split grille, Rally 2 wheels, and a stand-up rear deck spoiler.
Well, in 1969, that was outrageous. Nobody had ever put a spoiler on a car like that. Then they put, instead of chrome trim, they put a pop-out stripe on it. It kind of separated the car from every other Pontiac. And here was this really screaming at you orange car with these dark blue and yellow and red stripes, and then this big decal nameplate that said "The Judge" on it. You know, that car said something, you know. It said, "Don't get in my way. Don't laugh at me. I'm cool. I'll blow your doors off."
The Judge's credibility would be enhanced by its presence at the drag strip. And in the eyes of the public, Arnie the Farmer Beswick was one of Pontiac's most popular racers. Although Arnie didn't receive full factory sponsorship, Pontiac engineers hand-built the engine for his 4-speed GTO Judge. The Ram Air 4 engine likely made much more than its 370 horsepower rating, meaning that compression had to meet factory production standards to be eligible for the D-Stock class. Arnie's Judge would average mid-12 ETs at the 69 NHRA U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis. The Sam Foose-inspired Endless Line graphic by Scully's Customs is the car's most prominent feature, as most options were deleted to save weight, except for the hideaway headlights, which gave it a more streamlined appearance.
Since this was a stock class car and it was a production car, he actually had a tow hitch on this and a trailer, and he towed his funny car around with this car to the races. So and the funny car was painted the same color and paint scheme with the reverse pinstripe and so on, as well as his pro stock car. His pro stock car was called the Righteous Judge. So he had the Judge, the Righteous Judge, and the Super Judge. And he was running all 3 classes when he would go to an event. He was quite the character, and actually Arnie is absolutely a legend. And the thing about this particular legend, he started racing in the early 50s, and he's still doing 7-second passes at just under 80 years old. He is quite an inspiring man. He still has the passion to go fast.
Still ahead is a rare find and one of General Motors' most comfortable and smoothest running muscle machines.
They ran hard, they drove well, but they made so few of them, nobody knows what they are. I've been doing this for a long time. I've probably seen 3 in my lifetime.
By the late 60s, General Motors customers could shop for American supercars priced from entry-level Chevys all the way to the top-of-the-line brands. And while Arnie Beswick's Pontiacs tore it up at the drag strip, the Buick division would focus its efforts on producing the ultimate gentleman's express. The Grand Sport, with the Stage 1 option, disguised itself well on the street. This luxury liner was Buick's wolf in sheep's clothing.
'69, they came out with the Stage 1 to compete with actually Oldsmobile and Pontiac. They ran hard, they drove well, but they made so few of them, nobody knows what they are. I've been doing this for a long time. I've probably seen 3 in my lifetime.
The expensive list of comfort features appealed to a smaller segment of enthusiasts. If you wanted a bare-bones muscle car from GM, you didn't shop for a Buick.
They had a base price of around $3,200, as did the Chevelles and all the rest of them. All the options on this car drove it up to almost $5,200. $100 here, $100 there, so it just got a lot of real special options on it. With the 4-speed Stage 1, they only build a little over 400 of them, so there's just not that many around to start with. So it's pretty rare to find them.
This well-appointed black GS Stage 1 with vinyl top has dealer-installed Hurst 14-inch wheels with special order red racing stripe. The Italian parchment interior features a console and consolette, rear floor tachometer, standard AC, and a Hurst 4-speed shifter. Under the standard functional hood scoops sits Buick 400 cubic inch V8 with optional $200 Stage 1 package, rated at 345 horsepower and 440 foot-pounds of torque.
Generally, it's a performance package. It includes a little higher lift camshaft. Same carburetor, but it had different jets and stuff for a little more power. It had a slightly different distributor in it. The rear end ratios and the positive traction rear ends were also an option, but standard ratios on the 4-speed was a 364. Usually if you got the Stage 1 package, you got the Rally Pack also, which included some extra traction help in the rear end. But other than that, that's about all that separates it from a standard GS. Not very much, but just enough to make it interesting. Well, I love to drive it. It's smooth, except for the California concrete roads, which I don't care for, but I drive it cross country, wouldn't hesitate. Air conditioning works great, radio works. Very comfortable car to drive. And very fun, especially if you want to get on with the 4-speed. So it can also be exciting.
The 1960s was a revolutionary era for equal opportunity. This was certainly true for the young car-buying baby boomers. Whatever the brand, size, or model, General Motors would build a muscle car for anyone who wanted one. From Vic's Garage at the historic headquarters of Edelbrock in Torrance, California, I'm Chip Foose, and we'll see you next time on American Icon, the muscle car. In a time of profound social and cultural change, an entire generation of young Americans stood united in their desire for more powerful cars, fueling the greatest horsepower war in automotive history. Screeching rubber through turns, roaring down back streets and country lanes, were fun-loving drivers in their wild and powerful dream machines.